welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and we're here to talk about all the things going on in the Big Ten. We got bowl season coming up. We got some transfer portal stuff to get to, and I got two great guys to talk with me about it today. I got Brant, the CEO of Big Banter Sports, and I have Connor making another visit to talk about his Iowa Hawkeyes and a few other teams, I'm sure. And we're going to be talking about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So I'm sure he's going to be fair and honest about all of that. We'll see how Connor does there. But before we do that, let's let each guy introduce themselves, tell you where you can find them at. Brant, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I'm Brant. I'm the CEO and founder of Big Banner Sports. You can find all of our stuff over on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Big Banner Sports is the tag for all of that. You can check out our website, bigbannersports.com. I got a bunch of blog articles. You can access all the different podcasts within our network from there. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out, definitely go do so. Lots of good stuff.
For sure, a lot of great stuff over there at Big Banter Sports, and of course, we are affiliated with them. So you check them out, you check us out, it all works together. Connor, go ahead and tell people about you and where they can find you at.
Yeah, so as far as social media right now, we are on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter, we are at Inside the Nest Zero, and on Instagram, we are Inside the Nest Pod. As far as podcasting, though, you can find us on YouTube and Spotify. So if you just type in Inside the Nest, you'll be able to find us there.
Very good. All your Iowa coverage you want over there. Please don't forget, check out Big Banter Sports like we were talking about with Brant, bigbantersports.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If you're listening after the fact on podcast, give us a rating. Let us know what you think about the podcast. We also appreciate that. All right, guys, let's get into it. First off, we have Kyle McCord and Dylan Raiola. They are projected to go to Nebraska right now. This is some big news for Nebraska. I would say they probably had the worst quarterback room, if not one of the worst quarterback rooms in the Big Ten last season. We could be talking about a former five-star and a current five-star number one QB in the class going to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. On top of that, there's also been some rumors of Trevor Etienne going over there as well. So it's an interesting situation. Matt Rule is kind of cooking right now. I'm interested to get you guys' thoughts on it. If Matt Rule pulls this off, what does this mean for the future of the Cornhuskers program? Brant, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting, all the rumors that are floating around there right now with those two guys. If you would have mentioned those two names to me 2 years ago, I would have thought you were talking about Ohio State's quarterback room because obviously McCord was our guy the last year, and Raiola was committed to Ohio State at one point. I mean, a little bit of hard feelings for the kid. He's been at 4 different high schools throughout his high school career, and he's been committed to 3 different college programs. So I don't know if I can even buy into the fact that he's going to Nebraska. He might commit, but that doesn't even mean anything until. I mean, he'll probably find a way to get out of his once he actually signs. He'll probably find a way to still flip. But if that ends up being their quarterback room, that's really interesting. It's a massive upgrade over really anything we've seen there in the past few years. At least since they've had Adrian Martinez, but these guys are probably even more gifted than he once was. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this plays out. And if those two guys both go there, it's going to be a really interesting quarterback battle this offseason.
Yeah, it's almost like you'd wish Kyle McCord was the younger guy and Dylan Raiola was the older guy, right? With Dylan Raiola switching around so many times. And I know there's this stuff about he would have had to miss games out in Arizona because of some transfer high school reasons. So that's why I went to Georgia. I don't know. I didn't hear about that when he went to Georgia the first time, so I don't know how much there validity there is to that. But you almost wish Kyle McCord was the young guy coming in and Dylan Raiola was the older guy because then you're like, oh well, he only has 1 year here. But it's definitely an interesting situation. Dylan Raiola could do a lot of different things. He's kind of unpredictable at this point. Connor, what are your thoughts on Matt Rule bringing those guys in and the future of the Cornhuskers program?
Yeah, so I mean, as far as this transfer portal goes, it doesn't seem like you can really trust anything until it's officially done. So, as of right now, it's all kind of just rumors. But I mean, I don't know, man. You look at it, it would be the most gifted room we've ever seen Nebraska have, at least in my lifetime. So it is really dangerous as far as looking forward as another Big Ten team fan. I think that they could just take this and run away with it. It's kind of a domino effect. If they do get, McCord, then do see guys like Fleming. You do see guys like ETN kind of follow in his footsteps. So Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but nothing's done until it's done. So we'll have to wait and see.
And I'm glad you brought up Fleming there because he's one that really makes me skeptical about this whole thing because he didn't exactly have a great year with Kyle McCord throwing the ball to him. In fact, he had a better year the year before, 0 touchdowns this year. I'm not trying to say they have a bad relationship or anything like that. I have no idea. But it would seem to me that, he might be a little upset not having the best year of all time in that situation. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where. You're right there, Corey. Or Corey. Connor. um, but it's one of those situations where it's just. Would Flynn even want to go there and make that happen? I'm not sure. But the other piece to this, and Brant, I know you've been following this as an Ohio State fan, that, McCord, obviously the rumors are that he's afraid of competition, and Ryan Day was going to open things back up competition wise, and Kyle McCord, his dad, whoever it might be, didn't want that to happen. So the thought is, would Kyle McCord even want to go there? Would there be a QB battle? I'm interested in your thoughts, Brant.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be more the fan base talking than anything else, that
Right.
Kyle McCord is afraid of competition, because he obviously embraced the competition this past offseason with Evan Brown. He beat him out. He won the job. And then the competition actually continued into the season. For the first few games, they rotated in and out, and McCord just completely embraced it, went out there and won the job. And I don't see any reason why he wouldn't embrace that competition again. Being a 22-year-old quarterback going against kind of a hot-headed 18-year-old quarterback, it seems like a competition that's winnable, even if Raiola is as generational of a talent as people say he is. I think it's still probably winnable just because he's so young. So I don't think that's going to drive McCord away from going to Nebraska if that's where his heart's at.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think you're right. There are just a lot of rumors with it. And we have to, be careful with those rumors. And I'm one of those people. Eric came on here was talking about Kyle McCord's dad and all that stuff, and I get where the rumors coming from. And as an Ohio State fan, I want anybody to blame as much as anybody else with the loss to Michigan. But at the same time, like you said, Brant, he embraced the competition before with Devin Brown, so it's not like he's just completely averse to that. But we'll definitely see how it goes. Connor, while you were out there for a minute, we were just talking about the fact that, or the rumor that Kyle McCord does not care for competition, and would we think that that might deter him from going to Nebraska? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there with my
You're good, man.
connection, but I think I came in at the right time there. It is kind of just all rumors. I don't know. I feel like I kind of heard some of the similar stuff with the Raiola family. Um, Again, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not on the inside there, but it doesn't really seem like either guy particularly is a fan of competition, hence why they've kind of bounced around a little bit. So I could see that actually being a big deter for Kyle McCord coming in, but at the same time, as we were saying before, he is the older guy. It feels like he's going to have the nod, going into all this, but considering he has a little bit of experience. But I don't know, man. It is hard to step away from the number one overall recruit, so definitely a little bit dicey over there.
Yeah, for sure. And Matt Rule would definitely have a lot on his plate to deal with. I know the joke right now is Dylan Raiola's dad is crazy and Kyle McCord's dad is crazy. So, if you get the really good QB room, you might just have two of the craziest dads overall, at least rumor wise, in all the Big Ten in that room. So that would be interesting as well. Brant, you have any thoughts on the Trevor Etienne, the rumors there? Do you think that's likely? Do you think that's kind of just smoke? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it feels like Nebraska fans, they kind of go off the walls. I put Nebraska fans in the same basket as I put Indiana basketball fans. Like they think every player in the transfer portal and every recruit is going to go there. So you see one guy, one solid running back into the transfer portal, Nebraska fans are going to blow it up into something when it's just not. I've seen rumors of him going to like Georgia too. I've seen even Ohio State get a few. Um, a little bit of rumors there. So it seems like Etienne doesn't really know where he's going at this point, but I don't think it's going to be Nebraska.
Yeah, I heard a lot of buzz about Georgia at the beginning, which makes more sense. He kind of, if I'm not mistaken, he was the running back that was talking about kind of wanting to win, and he didn't really feel like, not that he was trying to dog Florida, but it sounded like he didn't really think that was something that was going to happen at Florida. And obviously, Florida, they have their own issues to deal with right now. All right, Connor, before we finish this up, you have any thoughts on ETN?
Yeah, to me that one doesn't seem as likely. Um, I don't know. Like Brant said, it seems like most of the recruiting websites you look at have projected him to go to a place like Georgia, and it's hard to see him going somewhere else, considering that it seems like his job to lose already. But yeah, I don't know. Again, if they do get a guy like Kyle McCord or let's say another big name quarterback, I could see him coming in and buying into that culture. So we'll have to wait and see what happens beforehand. But as of right now, I think it's probably not likely.
Right, and at the end of the day, if Nebraska can land any three of these guys, it's a good offseason for them. So it'll definitely be one to monitor there and see how it goes. All right, guys, let's get into some bowl game predictions. Ohio State plays Missouri in their Cotton Bowl, and Missouri is currently favored by 2.5. Though Ohio State is the higher ranked team, though Ohio State, you would think, is the better overall program, at least historically. Recently, they've been the better program, but Missouri, they've kind of had an up and up year. Really had some good wide receiver play. Their defense was a little bit better. Not the best defense they've ever had, but a little bit better than what they've had. And their quarterback was a nice shine to this team and able to help them out a lot. Eli Drinkowitz seems to have this team rolling well, and everybody seems to think Ohio State's in trouble with how many transfers they're losing and those things, and losing your starting quarterback, losing one of your top three receivers on the team, possibly, probably not having Marvin Harrison Jr., some other opt outs there as well. I don't know how much Vegas is taking that into account. But Brant, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this Ohio State and Missouri game?
Yeah, I understand why the line is the way it is right now, just because Marvin Harrison's probably not going to play. McCord's obviously gone. A lot of people leaving Ohio State right now, and more expected to probably opt out. Meanwhile, Missouri, a lot of their better players are underclassmen, so they'll all be playing. And this is kind of their Super Bowl per se, a chance to knock off Ohio State. You don't get that all the time, especially. They play in the SEC. They get to play like Georgia and all those big teams. But to play a team like Ohio State in the postseason is going to be a big thing, a big deal for them. But that being said, if you're a betting man and you see that plus odds for Ohio State in a bowl game, I don't know why you're not taking it. Because in every single bowl game that Ohio State has played in since the inception of the CFP that wasn't a playoff game, Ohio State has won handily. You got 2015, they played Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, crushed them. 2017, USC, 24-7 win in the Cotton Bowl. 2018, beat Washington in the Rose Bowl. And 2021 wasn't as much of a blowout. It was actually more of a comeback against Utah. But again, that's another win. 4-0 in playoff games in the CFE era that are not, in bowl games that are not playoff games. Also on the flip side, you've got a lot of guys surprisingly saying they're actually playing in the game rather than opting out already. Denzel Burke is playing, Jack Sawyer is playing, Emeka Egbuka is playing, Tyleik Williams is playing, Donovan Jackson's playing. That's a lot of guys that I thought would probably opt out. So it seems like the guys are all still kind of banded together for this game. I don't think Ohio State's going to struggle.
Yeah, the guys right now that I have that are out are obviously Kyle McCord, Julian Fleming. I don't think we're going to see Marvin Harrison Jr., even though he's talked about coming back. I feel like it's kind of like a CJ Stroud situation last year where it's just kind of like bait.
Yeah.
Tommy Eichenberg, I think normally he would play, but if his arm is still injured, he did not look good in the Michigan game. Just couldn't look like he couldn't tackle and some of those things. So I'm not sure if he'll play. Obviously, second string running back Chip Trainum, he will not be playing. But the two guys that I have question about are JT Tuimoloau, Travion Henderson, and of course the third guy, Emeka Egbuka, to see if those guys are going to play. Because those guys, two of them are on offense, and those would be huge for Devin Brown to be able to throw to and to have the run game with. And another one in JT, he was the one that got a lot of pressures this season and was really able to put pressure on the quarterback, even though Ohio State wasn't able to get those sacks. So interesting for them to see what they can do in that situation. Connor, you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I was mad impressed with what I saw from Coach Drink this year in Missouri. The last few years when I look at Missouri and how they fared in the SEC, I thought they were kind of one of the joke of the teams. respectfully. But it turns out, finishing inside the top 10 is no easy feat. So this is a game that I think is a little bit of a trap for Ohio State. I know that we've talked about some of those guys already sitting out, but I don't. Like, I was mad impressed with what I saw from a guy like Corey Schrader, I think is his name. I mean, I think he might have been the best running back in football this year. So I think Ohio State's in for a little more than they know. However, like Brant was saying, they've definitely, as underdogs or as favors, even have just kind of taken care of business in bowl games. So it is hard to bet against them. I am still impressed with Missouri, though. I got the Buckeyes winning, though, probably by a score or two.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing right now with the way that bowl games are, I feel like the team that's motivated has the upper hand by a lot. And if you would have asked me a week ago who is the more motivated team, I would have said Missouri. Like you said, Brant, this is their Super Bowl. This is, kind of like as high as they're gonna get. I don't think they're gonna be a playoff team anytime soon. However, they did just finish ninth, and we're gonna get to the 12-team playoffs. So maybe with that, they'll be able to sneak in there every now and then. But at least for right now, for these seniors, this is their Super Bowl. And the only guy I can think of, and the only guy when I was looking stuff up that might opt out is Corey Schrader, just because he is a running back. He does have a future, so it's possible. That's not been confirmed. So I don't even want to say that, like take it into account when I do my prediction. But it is one of those situations where we could possibly see him opting out. And if he does, that's a huge blow to Missouri because, like you said, Connor, he's been very, very good this season and a huge part of why they've had success. Brant, do you have any score predictions for this one?
Yeah, I think Missouri. I mean, Missouri is a great team, like you guys mentioned. Finishing top 10 is not easy. Their offense is really clicking. Luther Burden is a menace. He's going to be tough to guard. And Mookie Cooper might get a little revenge game going. OSU transfer that's playing out there. Their second leading receiver, I believe. But that being said, I still think Ohio State probably wins by maybe 10. Let's go 24-14.
That's about what I got. I have 27-17, but I really mean no disrespect with that because I could see a situation where Missouri wins as well on this one because they are starting Devin Brown. And as much as I'm high on Devin Brown, and I think Devin Brown could be very good, the passing game is going to be a huge part in this one. Missouri is, I think, 12th in turnover margin nationally, and Ohio State doesn't get a lot of turnovers. So if you see Devin Brown get down and start having a bad drive or two or something like that, he could throw a pick, he could fumble it, something like that could happen, and that could cause trouble for Ohio State because, as we know, off of turnovers, teams have been able to score on Ohio State's defense, and that's been kind of their Achilles heel throughout the season is turning it over and scoring on them there. So definitely an interesting situation to think about. And we'll definitely have to see how the game plays out because I'm with you, Brant. When I see that negative for another team or see that plus next to Ohio State, I'm like, I think I know what I'm going to bet there just in case. So, all right, well, let's get to Connor's team. Iowa faces Tennessee in the Citrus Bowl. Tennessee is favored by 7.5. I felt like that was kind of big. The over/under on this one got above 30 for Iowa, so that's new. 36 is the over/under on this one. Iowa has some guys who could be out, and Connor, I'm sure you'll reference some of these, but Cooper DeJean, Jay Higgins, Sebastian Castro, those are kind of the stars of the defense who could be out. Deontay Vines is in the transfer portal. He did have a good amount of receiving yards for this team this year. And then Tennessee, they actually have some guys who are confirmed to be out. The starting cornerback, Slaughter, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, so I'm not even going to try it. And then their edge rusher, who had the most snaps in the team, Tyler Barron, he is going to opt out for this one. And then Jalen Wright might opt out. We'll see what happens there. I think he's in the transfer portal. And then Jabari Small is also probably going to opt out in this one. We'll see what goes on there. Connor, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so honestly, a team like Iowa, it's very rare to see, a lot of their star players actually sit out. I mean, unless it's a given that they're a top 10 pick. Even guys like Jack Campbell and Sam Laporta, like you'll still see them play in their bowl games. They still really care. I mean, they want to go out with a bang. So as far as Jay Higgins, Sebastian Castro, I actually do expect to see them playing. Cooper DeJean, I think he won't be back in time. Same with Luke Lachey, but We should have the majority of our team out there, which is pretty reassuring. Um, that being said, I think there is a bit of a talent gap between us and just the SEC as a whole. So I would say I guess I understand why they're favored like that, but we have Phil Parker. I'm not worried about losing by that many points. But if you do look at history in bowl games, Tennessee did beat our breaks off one year, so I'm not feeling all that particularly thrilled about this matchup this year. But that does make me feel better. I actually was unaware of all those guys that were going to be out for Tennessee, so I'm looking forward to this matchup now.
Yeah, definitely some guys to worry about for Tennessee. Somebody talked about Joe Milton being out, but I can't imagine that. The dude needs to play for his draft stock, especially
Sure.
against a good defense like Iowa, so that way he can show something. Um, I maybe this is just me and SEC fans. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a hater here because I know you watch our videos sometimes. I think Tennessee is overrated this season. I don't think they're as good as they have seemed to be. Who they beat this year? I can't find a good team that they beat this year that warrants them being ranked. And honestly, a lot of the teams that did beat them were like, oh, that's a good loss. Ole Miss and some of those in Florida. It's like, well, who did they beat? The SEC did not have a great season at a conference, and so they just kind of beat up each other. And as we can tell from the most recent rankings, whether you agree with it or not, there's definitely SEC bias in the rankings. So for me, it's like this Tennessee team might be a bit overrated. And even though most SEC teams are going to have a talent gap over a Big Ten team, I still think Iowa plays way above their talent, at least on defense, than anywhere else. And if you're going to beat Tennessee, it's going to be with a really good defense. So I definitely think Iowa has a shot in this one. And if I had to give a score prediction, I'd say 16-13. Iowa wins and really showing the SEC that Big Ten West defense one more time before the Big Ten West is completely gone.
Love that.
Yeah. Brant, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, could not have said it better myself. That 16-13 Iowa win is spot on. That's exactly what I would have said. And back to Tennessee hasn't beat anyone. They're 0-3 against ranked teams this year. They haven't stacked up against teams that they maybe if they want to actually show that they have any competence of a football program, they've got to beat. But yeah, this Tennessee team's not good. And Iowa, on the flip side, has feasted against horrible quarterback play. And I mean, I've watched Joe Milton for years since he was at Michigan. I don't know where the hype ever came from, but he's not a good quarterback. Iowa's gonna just get a ton of turnovers off him. I wouldn't be surprised to see a defensive touchdown from Iowa and probably 3 turnovers minimum. And it's definitely another walking Iowa under. One more time for the Big Ten West. 36 is a high line for this game. Deacon Hill's not going to be scoring touchdowns. Joe Milton's going to be throwing picks left and right. It's gonna have that Big Ten West feel to it.
On the flip side, though, it's Brian Ferentz' last game, man. So you got to be careful. He might just go out there drawing up the craziest trick plays you've ever seen.
Hey, let him open up the offense for once. Let him
right. Might as well.
Let him loose. Let Brian cook. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying.
No, I completely agree with you, Brant. I just that was the other part of it that I didn't mention is that Joe Milton, yes, he has a very strong arm. Is he accurate? No. Does he make good decisions? No. I mean, this is all stuff that you need to do to beat Iowa. A really strong arm is not what you need to beat Iowa. It's good decision making and accuracy and playing sound offense because you don't want to give anything away to this Iowa defense because really the offense, sorry Connor, but it's not going to do much,
No offense taken here.
Right, that's how they play. So, as far as I'm concerned, you're playing exactly into the Iowa Hawkeyes' hands with a quarterback like Joe Milton, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how this one goes. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. UCLA plays Boise State. UCLA is favored in this one. I know what you're going to say. UCLA isn't a Big Ten team. All right, but hear me out. We're going to get there a little bit early because this bowl season, we're going to start seeing some players who are going to be in the Big Ten next year because UCLA does have quite a number of guys not playing in this one. The Lombardi Trophy winner, Latu, is not playing. Dante Moore is in the transfer portal. He's their leading passer. He is not playing. John Humphrey, Kamiri Ramsey, William Nemo, Carson Ryan, Cam Brown, the starting wide receiver. These guys are all not playing. And so it's going to be kind of a skeleton crew for UCLA, especially on that defense, which really, really carried UCLA this year. And on top of that, the defense coordinator for UCLA is at USC now. So I would say if these two teams were even, I would say UCLA is going to win this one. But I have a little bit more question going into it with so many players being out. Brant, should I be thinking about that, or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely. In some of these like lower level bowl games, you're probably going to see, especially in a game where it's a high power conference versus a mid major conference, those guys aren't going to be too fired up to go play that game. So you're going to see a lot of those opt outs like we're getting with UCLA. I would not be surprised at all to see Boise State go in this game. I think they should actually be favored. The game is in LA, so that's maybe has a bit to do with that. But at the same time, when UCLA plays their home games in the Rose Bowl, you see about 10 fans show up. So I don't think that's going to have that much of an impact on the game. And yeah, anybody I've ever heard of that plays for UCLA is not playing in this game. So let's go with Boise State.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's a Boise State offense that's high powered. And of course, they don't have their QB1 and Taylon Green, and they don't have their wide receiver one and Eric McAllister. So that does play into it as well. But, that's two guys for Boise State when, that's on the defense. I think I listed four guys on the defense for UCLA. So that's impactful as well. But this is going to be a high powered offense versus a high powered defense. It's definitely going to be an interesting one to see. Connor, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think Brant could have said it any better there. I mean, typically in these lower level bowl games, it does kind of just look like a walking blowout going into it. But as you mentioned, I mean, seeing guys like Dante Moore not playing and Latu and big names like that who are potential future first rounders, I mean, that makes an impact. I do think that Boise State doesn't have to travel all too far. It is kind of like their Super Bowl that we were talking about earlier with Missouri. So I think I could see them, keeping this one awfully close. I don't know if they'll win it, but I think that they cover a 4-point spread for sure.
Yeah, and I think the key for UCLA here is going to be for them to lean on that run game. Carson Steele hasn't been exactly what you thought he would be this season, but I think you can lean on that run game enough. Hopefully, the defense is still talented enough and plays well enough that they'll be able to win this one. I'm going to be optimistic for the Bruins, and I'm going to go 24-14 against Boise State. I really think that Taylon Green being out is going to hinder Boise State, but they still have their coaching staff intact, so it very well could be flipped on me. Brant, did you give a score prediction?
Yeah, let's go. I like under that 49 number.
Yeah.
Let's go Boise State by 14, maybe 24-10.
So you're like the opposite of me. You're going 24-14.
Yeah.
I could see it going either way. This is one of those ones where there's just so many opt-outs and everything. It's really going to be a testament to Chip Kelly, either a testament to him or it's going to be like, Chip Kelly, what are you doing here? You need to get this team together. So, and I do think Chip Kelly is still a good coach, very good offensive mind. So he might be able to get this team going more than we realize. All right, let's go to our next one. Northwestern versus Utah. Utah's favored in this one by 6.5. I do want to make a note. Bryson Barnes is in the transfer portal, but he did say he is going to play in this game, so I don't know if that means he's not going to commit until after. But they have like 3 quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Obviously, Cam Rising is not going to be available for this game, so Bryson Barnes did say that he's going to come back and play, but I think he realizes that he's not going to be the starting quarterback next year with Cam Rising coming back for like his 6th or 7th year or something like that. Crazy that that's what we have going on. But Northwestern, they are going to be missing their starting guard, Josh Priebe, however you pronounce his last name. He's going to be out for this one since he's in the transfer portal. It's going to be an interesting game. Listen, I have been a believer in Northwestern all year long, but with Bryson Barnes being there, with only one wide receiver out for Utah, I don't know if I see Northwestern winning this one. Connor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it time and time again. I've been nothing but impressed with this Northwestern team, and I think that their entire goal this year was to go bowling. So the sheer fact they made it is extremely impressive. I do think, again, there's a little bit of a talent gap here going on, but that's kind of been the whole mantra for Northwestern this whole year. So they've continuously surprised me. I definitely see them keeping this one closer than 6.5, let's call it. But again, I just think like you were saying, Barnes being back and the majority of their team. I mean, like a year or two ago, this Utah team was hanging in there with Ohio State, so it's hard to picture them losing to a Northwestern.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Utah losing the Rose Bowl against Ohio State 2 years ago, the Rose Bowl last year to Penn State. This team obviously is hungry, so I just don't know if it's the best situation for Northwestern. Brant, are you like us, or are you a little bit more optimistic for the Wildcats?
I've got a bit of optimism for him here because, I mean, like Connor said, it's been their thing the whole year. They've been underdogs in a lot of games, and they've gone out and competed and even knocked off some teams they probably shouldn't have beat with the talent gap. I think this is a huge opportunity for the Big Ten West to kind of put themselves on the map one last time against definitely a more talented team. But David Braun, he's had his guys playing all year long. He won Big Ten Coach of the Year. The guys, they're not the most talented, but they'll go out and fight for their coach. They'll go out and fight for each other. And the thing with Utah, their offense, I mean, I think having Bryson Barnes in there is actually, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a good thing for Northwestern because I'm not sure who would be the next guy up, if anybody. But Bryson Barnes isn't that talented. He's not that great. The Utah offense has not been clicking that much this year. At least definitely not what it was the past few years of the Cam Rising under center. Definitely has been a setback, and they had more of an underwhelming season than they've had the past few years. I think they finished 7-5, if I'm not mistaken, which is, I mean, they usually expect to go like 9-3, be in the Pac-12 championship. They won it the last 2 years. Obviously didn't come close to it this year. So coming off of what's a disappointing season versus Northwestern coming off of a really impressive season, way overachieving what they were expected to do. I don't see any reason for Northwestern to not do it one more time.
All right, hey, you're more optimistic than I am. I don't know. I think Bryson Barnes is a gamer. I know he's not the most talented guy in the world, but I feel like he's one of those guys that he would do anything to have his team win. And I mean, Utah just has those kind of guys across the board. Now Northwestern does too. So I don't think this is going to be the most talented game in the world, but I do feel like we're going to see two really strong teams slugging it out, really going at it with each other. I actually have Utah in this one, 17-14. I think both defenses are good in this one. I agree with you, Brant. Both the Utah offense is not as good, but I do have some concerns about Northwestern's offense and what they've been able to do. Northwestern, they're a Big Ten West team, so we'll see. Can David Braun bring the Big Ten West to Utah and make Utah not only lose to a couple Big East teams, but can they lose to a Big West team? It'll be interesting to see for sure. All right, guys, let's move on to Minnesota plays Bowling Green. Minnesota is favored by 4. Of course, Minnesota did finish the season 5-7, but due to some bowl eligibility issues, they were able to make it in there. Connor, I know you have some thoughts about Minnesota. I know they kind of broke your heart this season, but just give me your honest thoughts on Minnesota versus Bowling Green in this one.
Yeah, so I mean, Minnesota, yeah, like you said, they broke my heart. But looking at this game, it almost feels a little bit disrespectful. I know Minnesota wasn't their record wasn't all that great, but they played some pretty solid teams this year, and I feel like they're coming into this one -4. I know they've lost a lot of guys to the portal. They lost Athen. I'm not gonna say his last name, but I mean, they still have a lot of studs there, and I think that they're just. I keep saying talent gap, and it's a little bit unfair, but I think they're going to walk into this one and they're going to end up beating the brakes off them. I don't think this one's going to be close, so that's just my 2 cents.
No, I see exactly what you're saying. My biggest question mark is who's going to be at running back because Zach Evans is missing. Is Darius Taylor going to be healthy? Is Jordan Newman going to be healthy? Thankfully, it hasn't seemed to matter. Whoever totes the rock from Minnesota seemed to have been able to run this year. But I think Cole Kramer is the quarterback who would be next in line because Athen is not there. Max Brosmer from New Hampshire is transferring in, but he said he's not going to be there. until January. So I think the senior Cole Kramer is the one starting this game. But I think Minnesota actually has some kind of underrated receivers. Crooms is better than I think people give him credit for. Daniel Jackson is, I think, better than people give him credit for. So this is going to be an interesting one. If Kramer can just make the right throws and make the right reads, I could see, like you, Connor, I could see this being a three-score game where Minnesota comes out on top. Brant, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the talent gap, obviously, it's a Big Ten team versus a MAC team. Minnesota is going to be the more talented team. They probably should have been 4-8 this year with what happened against Iowa. So them being in a bowl game is kind of crazy. But at the same time, they're going to walk into this game with Cole Kramer under center, like you said. He's a fifth-year senior that has attempted 14 career passes. And I wouldn't be surprised if he came out of this game still having attempted 14 career passes. Just the way that Minnesota plays football. They've got a good line. They have just a crazy deep running back room. They've thrown so many different guys back there and had 100-yard rushers like every game. That's how they play football, and that's how they're going to keep playing football, especially against a team that's not probably on the same level as them talent-wise. So I think Minnesota's going to win it. Maybe the score isn't anything insane because they probably only put up like 21. But it also depends who plays defensively for them. If Tyler Nubin is there versus if he's not there, that could be a big difference maker. Because Bazelak for Bowling Green, he played at Indiana, he played at Missouri. He's one of those like fifth or sixth year senior guys who's been around. He's played at higher levels. He can pick apart a defense if they're missing some of the key guys out there. So it's really going to depend who plays on the defensive side of the ball for Minnesota, in my opinion. But I just think they're offensively they're going to run the ball. They're not going to trust a guy who has thrown 14 career passes. Just set back and air it out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Minnesota, that's the game plan. Lead on your run game in this one and really take care of business there. We haven't talked about it on the show yet, but I guess we can talk about it a little bit here and then just get your thoughts on the impact of the game. But Joe Rossi moving to Michigan State. Some might think it's a lateral job. Some might think it's a job up, whatever you want to think about it. I think there's more money there, so I would consider that a job up if I'm making more money. But yeah, Connor, what are your thoughts on Joe Rossi not coaching in this one and possibly leaving that Minnesota defense not maybe as good as we've seen this season?
Yeah, I mean, in recent years, obviously, he's done more than enough to prove his worth, especially in the Big Ten. You know, he fits the mold of the Big Ten West kind of coordinator. So it is kind of wild to see him go. But considering the coaching changes that you see going on over there, I don't blame him. And like you said, the money going down, it definitely makes sense for him to go. I consider it a step up for a job, but it will make a huge impact in this bowl game. And I actually kind of didn't think about that when I was talking about it earlier. Maybe it does keep this game a little bit closer than I anticipate, but you know, there's a lot of talent there, and it seems like he's got these guys pretty much well coached leading up to this. But it does make a huge impact, and I know that goes without saying, but I think it will make an impact in this game. It'll be, I don't know, maybe a one-score game as opposed to three, like I was saying before. So,
Wow, 14 point difference, huh?
yeah,
Eh,
definitely
I
opened my eyes a little bit.
right. I hate when people say it's like a certain point difference for losing somebody. It's like you can't ever account for that.
Right.
Brant, what are your thoughts on Joe Rossi not being there?
Yeah, definitely interesting to see him kind of make that jump. Always interesting to see somebody move within the conference to kind of a lateral position. But yeah, I think it could definitely have an impact. I'm not sure who's going to be calling the shots in the defense for Minnesota, but not having the guy who's been doing that the past few years is probably going to make a bit of an impact.
Yeah, for sure. So thankfully, it's just Bowling Green, which I say that watch Bowling Green win this one or give them a game like Toledo gave Illinois a game earlier in the season. But I will credit. I think Toledo is obviously a better team than Bowling Green is. So we'll see what happens there. All right, our last game we're going to talk about is Rutgers and Miami, the Pinstripe Bowl. I think this is like the third time Rutgers has been to the Pinstripe Bowl in recent years, so they're going there a lot. I never in my life, after seeing Ohio State and Miami face off 20 years ago, did I think we would see Rutgers and Miami facing off in a bowl game, but, here we are. Of course, no Tyler Van Dyke. for Miami. They have some defensive reserves out in this one, so that does make a difference. They have one of their primary wide receivers. I think he had the third most targets on his team, but I can't find really any guys out for Rutgers. So Rutgers looks like they're going to be full strength in this one. Kyle Monungai coming back for another year. That is huge for them. Gavin Wimsatt going to continue to develop. That'll be big for him to be in this one. I'm curious your thoughts on the game, Brant, of how you think this is going to go.
Yeah, one guy that might be out. I'm not sure if he said he's sitting out for the bowl game, but I know Max Melton is going to the NFL draft, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him sit out. But aside from that, it really seems like Rutgers is going to have their whole team. Meanwhile, Miami is kind of just it's kind of the common theme in these, but they're a team who maybe underachieved a bit. Some of their guys are transferring out. Some of their guys are going to the draft and sitting out. So they're probably going to be a lot more of a patchwork team than Rutgers is in this game. They're going to have most of their guys who've been playing together all season. I know they kind of fell off at the end of the year, but they had definitely a tougher schedule down that stretch. I think Miami is going to be the team they're going to be putting out there for this game is going to be more on the talent level of the teams they were beating up on earlier in the year. So I think Rutgers has a good shot to win this one.
Yeah, me too, especially with Emory Williams being the quarterback for Miami. No disrespect to him, but he's just not played a ton, and that could really fall in favor of Rutgers in this one. Connor, what are some of your thoughts?
First of all, I just have a quick question. Is it confirmed that Van Dyke is transferring to Wisconsin next year, or was that just a rumor?
No, that was confirmed
Yeah,
today.
confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yikes. All right, that's interesting. And two, another question. Was Miami the team this year that like actually fumbled like the worst loss I've ever seen in my
Yes.
life?
Yeah.
That alone, I'm going to be rolling with Rutgers. I that was so brutal. I mean, I don't know how their coach still has a job. So the fact that they're favored in this game, no chance. I'm going to be rolling with Rutgers every ounce of the way. And like you guys were saying, I mean, it seems like, these Rutgers guys have something to prove. Monungai coming back. I mean, he wants to go out there and I'm sure beat the brakes off a historically great team. So I'm rolling with Rutgers all the way on this one. That's no hesitation.
Yeah, and I mean, Greg Schiano, he has a winning bowl game record, and he has the most bowl game wins at Rutgers of any coach. So definitely a big game for Rutgers to really make a statement and continue to be that way. I feel like Rutgers always plays hard in their bowl games because it's always a question if they're going to make it every single year. And so when they do get there, they're going to play really, really hard. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, it's typically the team that's the most motivated to play. And I feel like, I'm not trying to be disparaging, but I feel like, Miami has some more highly rated recruits and stuff like that. Like you guys were saying about some of the other bowl games. I just feel like Miami's not going to get up for this game. I don't think they're going to be too excited about it. I don't think they're going to, be giving it their all. And I definitely think a Rutgers team that's this talented could make that happen with or without Max Melton. I read that Max Melton is still deciding, but people are saying he's leaning no. But at the end of the day, you can never predict that stuff. It's a kid's decision, and you can never figure that out. So, all right, you guys got any more thoughts? That's our final bowl game. You guys got any more thoughts about these teams or maybe some of the portal additions? We had Tyler Van Dyke going to Wisconsin. Anything else like that, Brent?
Yeah, my one more just comment on the Iowa game while I'm here, while we've got Connor. I think it actually increases their chances by. I know you said you don't like tying specific point amounts to like a player's impact, but with Deontay Vines in the portal and the amount of drops that man has had this year, I'd say it increases Iowa's chances of winning by about 7 points.
Listen, man, you are not wrong.
We all know none of those drops were Deacon Hill's fault either, right?
Surely it was not Deacon Hill, but losing Deontay Vines this year, not to discredit, I mean, the dude actually had a lot of great catches, but let's not call like some crazy loss, that there was a 0-point differential, actually, if not a positive one for Iowa, with him sitting out. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. I mean, Iowa, they're one of those teams. They keep their guys out of the transfer portal. Kirk Ferentz has built a great culture there. I'm interested to see who they hire as their offensive coordinator. I feel like they're probably going to hire from within because that seems to be Kirk Ferentz's MO. But I don't know. Maybe they go out and get Cliff Kingsbury or something like that.
Yeah, man. From what I'm understanding, no one really knows. They've interviewed guys that we think like the obvious choices, but They've also been interviewing coast to coast, so I wouldn't put a nail in any coffin there. I think we might be surprised here come a month or two. So, cheers.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I do have one question, Connor, for you before we get out
Yeah.
of here. Quarterback situation for Iowa. Do you think they're going to stick with Cade McNamara? Or do you think they're going to go into the portal and try to grab somebody? What do you think that's happening there?
I think they put all their eggs in one basket trying to get him last year, so I think they pretty much promised him the job for next year. He was playing, not at a very high level, but he was playing at a level that I think certainly earned him a job over what we have. I wouldn't hate going into the portal, especially with losing a guy, but yeah, I don't foresee us going and getting anyone. It's going to be Cade.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know it was a big loss losing Spencer Petras for you guys. So,
Right. That's right.
prayers for
He's gone too.
yeah, prayers for you all leaving him or losing
Right.
him. But all right, well, hey, thanks guys for coming in and talking about the games here. Thank you for watching. We appreciate that. Have a great night. We'll see you next time.